My sister Amanda's wedding reception was held at the country club our grandmother had belonged to for 40 years. White tablecloths, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet playing in the corner. 200 guests celebrating Amanda's marriage to a corporate attorney, watching my mother hold court at the head table like she was the one getting married. I'd worn my best dress, a simple navy blue thing I'd bought on sale 3 years ago. Next to Amanda's bridesmaids in their custom silk gowns, I looked exactly like what I was, a 32-year-old middle school teacher who shopped at outlet malls and drove a car with 200,000 miles on it. My mother had already made 3 comments about my appearance before dinner was served. Too plain, too simple. Couldn't I have tried harder on Amanda's special day? My brother Tyler had laughed each time, and my younger sister Sophie had rolled her eyes in that way that said she agreed, but was too polite to say it out loud. I'd learned years ago not to respond. Silence was easier than defending myself to people who'd already decided I was the family disappointment. The champagne toast happened after dinner. Amanda's new husband gave a sweet speech about finding his soulmate. My father, who divorced my mother 10 years ago and remarried, gave an awkward toast about new beginnings. Then my mother stood, glass in hand, slightly unsteady from the 3 cocktails she'd had during dinner. To my beautiful daughter Amanda, she began, her voice carrying across the ballroom. You've always known exactly what you wanted and how to get it. You've never settled for less than you deserved. You've made me so proud. She paused, her eyes finding me at the far end of the head table. Unlike some people in this family who are content with mediocrity, you've always reached for excellence. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Amanda's face tightened with embarrassment, but she didn't stop our mother. Some people, my mother continued, walking toward me now with her champagne glass, think that being ordinary is enough, that a tiny apartment, a teacher's salary, and no ambition are acceptable. She was standing directly in front of me now. The entire ballroom had gone quiet. This is all you'll ever be, she said, and dumped the entire glass of champagne over my head. The cold liquid ran down my face, soaked into my hair, and dripped onto my navy dress. The ballroom was completely silent for 3 long seconds. Then Tyler started laughing. Sophie joined in nervously. A few of my mother's friends tittered. Amanda looked mortified but said nothing. I sat there, champagne dripping from my hair, and stayed completely silent. I didn't wipe my face. I didn't stand up. I didn't give them the satisfaction of a reaction. I just reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and checked the email I'd received that morning. The one from my grandmother's estate attorney confirming that all property transfers had been completed and recorded with the county. The one that listed me as the sole owner of 4 residential properties in the greater metropolitan area, including the house where my mother lived, the condo where Tyler lived with his family, the townhouse where Sophie had been living rent-free for 3 years, and the vacation cabin in Lake Tahoe that Amanda had been using every summer since college. My grandmother had died 6 weeks earlier at 93. The funeral had been small, just family. The will reading had happened 2 weeks ago, attended by my mother, my siblings, and me. My grandmother's attorney, a precise woman named Margaret Chen, had read the will in her office conference room. To my daughter Patricia, Margaret had read, looking at my mother, I leave my jewelry collection and personal effects, excluding any real property or financial assets. My mother had looked confused but not concerned. She'd assumed the real assets would be divided among all of us. To my grandchildren Tyler, Sophie, and Amanda, I leave $10,000 each. My siblings had exchanged glances. 10,000 was nice, but they'd been expecting much more. My grandmother had been comfortably wealthy, owned multiple properties, and had a substantial investment portfolio. To my granddaughter Jennifer, Margaret had continued, looking directly at me. I leave the entirety of my real estate holdings, including the primary residence at 847 Oak Street, the condominium at Riverside Towers Unit 403, the townhouse at 28 Maple Lane, and the cabin property in Lake Tahoe. I also leave her my complete investment portfolio, currently valued at approximately $3.2 million, and all remaining financial assets. The room had gone silent. That can't be right, my mother had said. Jennifer gets everything? That's impossible. Margaret had handed her a copy of the will. It's quite clear. Mrs. Morrison was very specific about her wishes. She also left a letter for the family, which I'm authorized to read if there are questions about her decision. Read it, Tyler had demanded. Margaret had opened a sealed envelope. My grandmother's handwriting was shaky but legible on the typed letter she asked Margaret to prepare. To my family, Margaret read. I'm leaving the bulk of my estate to Jennifer because she's the only one who ever visited me without asking for money. She came every Sunday for 8 years, even when she was working 2 jobs to pay off her student loans. She called me every Wednesday evening just to talk. She remembered my birthday, my anniversary with your grandfather, and the day your grandfather died. The rest of you visited when you needed something. Patricia, you borrowed $60,000 from me over the years and never paid back a penny. Tyler, you borrowed $40,000 for your business that failed, then asked for more. Sophie, I paid your credit card debt 3 times. Amanda, I've been giving you money for vacations and shopping for years. Jennifer never asked for anything. She never borrowed money. She never treated me like a bank account. She loved me because I was her grandmother, not because I was wealthy. The properties you're all living in are Jennifer's now. You've been living rent-free or at substantially reduced rates for years. Jennifer will decide what to do with them. I trust her judgment completely. My mother had stood up. This is undue influence. Jennifer manipulated her. We'll contest this. Margaret had remained calm. Mrs. Morrison anticipated that response. She was evaluated by 2 independent physicians who confirmed her mental capacity. The will was executed properly with witnesses. She also documented every loan she gave to each of you, every request for money, and every visit Jennifer made. She kept detailed records for years. You're welcome to contest, but I should inform you that your mother specifically instructed me to vigorously defend this will, using estate funds if necessary. We'd left the attorney's office with my mother threatening legal action and my siblings in shocked silence. None of them had spoken to me since. Until the wedding, which had been planned before my grandmother's death. Amanda had considered postponing but decided to go forward. My mother had insisted I still attend, probably hoping for some kind of confrontation or reconciliation. She'd gotten her confrontation, just not the way she'd expected. I stood up from the table, champagne still dripping from my hair. I walked to the ladies' room without saying a word. Inside, I dried off as best I could, texted my friend Sarah to come pick me up, and left the country club through a side entrance. The next morning, I met with my property manager, a competent woman named Lisa who'd managed my grandmother's properties for 15 years. I want to give them proper notice, I told her. 60 days. Month-to-month tenants. Legal eviction if they don't leave voluntarily. All 4 properties? Lisa asked. All 4. I'm selling 3 and keeping the Lake Tahoe cabin for myself. Your mother's house is worth about $800,000. The condo, $600,000. The townhouse, $500,000. You're looking at about $1.9 million in sales, minus the mortgages, which are all paid off. You'll clear close to $1.8 million after fees and taxes. Good. Start the process. The eviction notices went out by certified mail 3 days later. My mother called 16 times. I didn't answer. Tyler sent angry texts. I blocked his number. Sophie came to my apartment crying, begging me to reconsider. You can't make us homeless, she said through tears. Where are we supposed to go? The same place everyone else goes when they need housing. You find an apartment you can afford and you rent it. Or you buy a house. You have jobs. You have income. You'll figure it out. But I can't afford market rate rent in this city. I'm a yoga instructor. I barely make $30,000 a year. Then get a roommate. Or move to a cheaper area. Or get a different job. That's what everyone else does. This is because of the champagne thing, isn't it? Mom was drunk. She didn't mean it. This is because Grandma left me these properties and I've decided to sell them. What Mom did at the wedding just confirmed that I'm making the right decision. We're family, Sophie pleaded. Family doesn't dump champagne on your head at a wedding and tell you you're worthless. Family doesn't spend decades treating you like you're less than everyone else because you chose a normal job instead of chasing money. Family doesn't visit their grandmother only when they need to borrow cash. Sophie left crying. I felt bad for about 10 minutes, then remembered every family gathering where I'd been the punchline, the disappointment, the cautionary tale about settling for mediocrity. My mother tried a different approach. She hired a lawyer to contest the will. Margaret shut it down within 3 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. My grandmother's mental capacity was documented. The will was properly executed. The decades of loans and requests for money were all recorded in my grandmother's meticulous files. The eviction proceedings moved forward. Tyler refused to leave, so I had to go to court. The judge reviewed the case for about 15 minutes. "You're a month-to-month tenant," the judge told Tyler. "The property owner has given you 60 days notice. You have no lease, no ownership interest, no legal basis to remain. You need to vacate." "She's my sister," Tyler argued. "This is a family property." "This is private property owned by your sister. Family relationships don't override property law. You have 2 weeks to vacate or the sheriff will remove you." Tyler moved out with 3 days to spare, taking cabinet doors and light fixtures with him out of spite. I documented everything and sent him a bill for damages. He ignored it. I sent it to collections. Safi moved in with a friend. Amanda and her new husband found a rental house, though she complained bitterly about having to pay rent after years of free lake access. My mother downsized to a 1-bedroom apartment in a less expensive part of town. None of them spoke to me. My mother told extended family I was cruel and heartless, that I'd turned my grandmother against them, that I'd stolen their inheritance. Some relatives believed her. Others had watched my grandmother's relationship with her daughter and grandchildren for years and knew the truth. I sold the properties within 4 months. The cabin in Lake Tahoe became my weekend retreat. The $1.8 million from the sales went into investment accounts. Combined with my grandmother's existing portfolio, I had nearly $5 million in assets, generating enough income that I could quit teaching if I wanted to. I didn't quit. I loved teaching, but I did reduce my hours, bought a reliable new car, and moved into a nicer apartment with a view. A year later, Amanda sent me a text. Just one line. "Mom's apartment lease is up, and she can't afford renewal at market rate. Can you help?" I read it 3 times, remembered the champagne dripping down my face, remembered my mother's voice saying, "This is all you'll ever be." Remembered 28 years of being treated like I was less than my siblings because I chose purpose over profit. I typed back, "No." She didn't respond. My grandmother's will had one more provision I hadn't mentioned to anyone, a letter addressed to me personally, separate from the family letter Margaret had read. "Jennifer," it said in my grandmother's careful handwriting, "you're reading this because I've died and you've inherited everything. Your mother and siblings are probably angry. They're probably claiming you manipulated me or that I wasn't in my right mind. I want you to know that I made these decisions very deliberately over many years. I watched how they treated you. I watched them come to me asking for money while you came to me with stories about your students and questions about my life. I watched them take and take and take while you gave and gave and gave. You deserve better from your family. Since they wouldn't give it to you, I'm giving you something else. The freedom to build the life you want without worrying about money. And the power to decide whether they deserve any part of your life. Don't let them guilt you into giving them what they didn't earn. Don't let them convince you that being kind means being a doormat. Real family lifts you up. They don't pour champagne on your head. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry your mother and siblings never saw what I saw. Someone remarkable who chose meaning over money and kindness over cruelty. Be happy. You've earned it. Love, Grandma. I keep that letter in my desk drawer. On days when I doubt myself, when I wonder if I'm being too harsh or too unforgiving, I read it again. My grandmother saw clearly what took me years to understand. Some people don't deserve access to your life, your love, or your resources. Not even if they're family, especially not if they're family who treat you like you're worthless. I chose to believe my grandmother over my mother. I chose to trust the person who loved me unconditionally over the people who loved me only when it was convenient. And I've never regretted it. From my earliest memories, the contrast between how my parents treated me and my younger sister Katie was stark and painful. My name is Samantha, and this is the story of how my own family betrayed me and how I rose above it. Katie was born just a year after me, and from the moment she arrived, it was clear she would be the golden child. Our parents, Mark and Sophia Carter, showered her with attention while I lingered in the shadows. Every milestone, every achievement, every moment seemed to revolve around Katie. I vividly remember my 10th birthday. While Katie had a lavish party just months earlier, complete with bouncy castles and professional entertainers, my celebration consisted of a simple cake after dinner. "We're a bit tight on money this month, Samantha," Mom explained. Yet the following week, they managed to buy Katie a brand new iPad. The disparity wasn't just in material things. At dinner, when Katie spoke, our parents hung on her every word. When I tried to share something about my day, Dad would cut me off with a distracted, "That's nice, honey," without even looking up from his phone. The weight of their indifference was crushing. But the most frustrating part was the food situation. Katie had a severe peanut allergy, and instead of managing her diet separately, my parents banned peanuts from the house entirely. I loved peanut butter sandwiches, they were my favorite, but even at school, I wasn't allowed to bring them. It's not fair, I told my grandmother Rose one afternoon as we baked cookies together in her warm kitchen. Why do I have to eat everything Katie eats? I don't have allergies. Grandma Rose was my sanctuary, the one person who truly saw me. Her kitchen was my refuge, a place where I could speak freely without fear of being dismissed. Your parents think they're doing what's best, she said, her wise eyes softening. But they're not seeing how it's affecting you. As we measured flour into a bowl, I vented about the latest injustice. Mom bought Katie new dance shoes yesterday because she might want to take lessons. But when I asked to join the science club, she said it was too expensive. Grandma Rose's face hardened. I've tried talking to your mother about this, she said with a sigh. Just last week, I told her she needs to treat you and Katie equally. But Sophia, she trailed off, shaking her head. She claims Katie is more talented, more outgoing. She says you're too introverted, that it's harder to connect with you. Her words stung, but they didn't surprise me. I'd overheard similar conversations before, my parents discussing how Katie was special, the daughter with all the potential. Meanwhile, I was just there, the quiet one, the less talented one, the one they had to accommodate but never really saw. While Katie's schedule was packed with dance classes, piano lessons, and art workshops, I spent my afternoons alone in my room, watching life pass me by through the window. Katie has such natural talent, Mom would gush at dinner. Her dance instructor says she could go professional someday. Dad would beam with pride while I quietly pushed food around my plate, invisible as always. But everything changed when I turned 12. One Saturday morning, Grandma Rose showed up at our door, her eyes twinkling with excitement. Get your coat, Samantha, she said. I've enrolled you in the Advanced Young Scientist program at the community center. That program changed my life. For the first time, I was immersed in a world of experiments, equations, and endless possibilities. Our instructor, Dr. Chen, didn't see a quiet introvert. He saw a curious mind hungry for knowledge. When I solved a complex algebra problem during the first week, he high-fived me in front of the whole class. By the time I was 14, I wasn't just excelling in science and math. I was standing at podiums, delivering arguments about climate change and social justice. People listened when I spoke. The shy girl who used to hide in her room was gone, replaced by someone confident with opinions and the courage to express them. Samantha's presentation on renewable energy was outstanding, my debate coach told my parents at a school meeting. She has a real future in scientific research if she wants it. I'll never forget Katie's face that day, the way her smile tightened, her eyes narrowing. She wasn't used to sharing the spotlight, and my growing popularity clearly bothered her. Soon, people started stopping by my locker between classes. I was elected to the student council. For the first time in my life, I had friends who valued my opinions and invited me to study groups and weekend hangouts. I finally felt like I belonged somewhere. That's when Katie started her whisper campaign. Mom, Dad, I overheard her one evening, her voice dripping with fake concern. I saw Samantha behind the gym today. She was kissing Tommy Martinez, and last week, it was Jake from her debate team. I burst into the kitchen, my face hot with anger. That's a lie. I've never. Samantha, Katie wouldn't make this up, Mom interrupted, her voice sharp. She's worried about you. These boys, these late-night study sessions, it's not appropriate, Dad added. No more going out after 6, and we'll be monitoring your phone calls from now on. It's for your own good. What about my debate team meetings, my science club? I protested. You can participate in school activities, Mom said curtly. But afterward, you come straight home. No exceptions. I looked at Katie, who was smirking behind her hand. She'd won again, and we both knew it. My newfound freedom, my hard-earned place in the world, was being stripped away, all because of her lies. As we grew older, Katie's antagonism only grew worse. It wasn't enough for her to control my social life through our parents. Katie's campaign against me escalated, targeting not just my spirit but my belongings and the few friendships I'd managed to maintain despite the restrictions. One morning, I discovered my meticulously crafted science project drenched in water. Weeks of calculations were now smeared into illegible chaos. Another time, my favorite sweater, a cherished birthday gift from Grandma Rose, turned up with bleach stains, the damage irreparable. But the worst was what she did to my friendship with Rachel. Rachel and I had been close since middle school, bonding over our love of biology and bad reality TV. She was one of the few friends who stood by me through Katie's previous schemes. But even Rachel had her breaking point. "How could you?" Rachel confronted me one day at my locker, her voice shaking with anger, her eyes brimming with tears. "Katie told me everything. How you write about Matt in your diary and how you're planning to steal him from me." "Rachel, that's insane." I protested, stunned. "I don't even have a diary. I would never." But Rachel was already walking away, her faith in me shattered. I stood frozen in the hallway, feeling the weight of another piece of my life crumbling away. That evening I stormed into Katie's room, trembling with rage. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded. "Why do you have to destroy everything good in my life?" Katie leaned back in her chair, completely unfazed. "You're paranoid, Samantha," she said coolly. "Maybe if you stopped obsessing over me and making up stories, you'd have more friends." I wanted to scream. Somehow, she always twisted things, painting me as the unhinged one. And our parents? They never questioned her stories. Then came Katie's 15th birthday. Mom spent days preparing for it, determined to make everything perfect. The house was decked out with pink and gold balloons, and relatives filled every corner of the living room. The cake was Mom's masterpiece. 3 tiers of vanilla buttercream, Katie's favorite. When the time came, everyone gathered around, singing happy birthday. Katie's smile lit up the room as she blew out the candles to enthusiastic applause. But moments later, her expression changed. Her hand went to her throat, her eyes wide with panic. Mom recognized the signs immediately. "She's having a reaction," she cried. "EpiPen," Dad shouted, already sprinting for the emergency kit. Mom held Katie's hand while Dad administered the injection. Gradually, her breathing steadied, but the festive atmosphere had evaporated. Concerned relatives murmured in clusters as my parents tried to piece together what had gone wrong. "How did peanuts get in the cake?" Mom kept asking, frantically checking and rechecking her recipe. I was so careful. That's when Katie spoke, her voice raspy but clear. "I saw Samantha in the kitchen earlier," she said, her gaze locking on mine. "She was doing something with the cake." "What?" "No," I blurted out. "I wasn't even near the cake." But Katie pressed on, her tone laced with quiet conviction. "Check her purse," she whispered. "The blue one by the door." Dad didn't hesitate. He grabbed my purse before I could react. From the main pocket, he pulled out a small jar of peanut butter, holding it up for everyone to see. "She could have died," Dad thundered, his voice reverberating through the room. "What were you thinking, Samantha?" I stood there, trembling, as accusations flew from all directions. The jar of peanut butter in Dad's hand might as well have been a smoking gun. "I didn't do it," I repeated, my voice growing smaller with each plea. "Please, you have to believe me." Katie sat on the couch, the oxygen mask still resting near her face. But as our eyes met, I caught it, the faintest upturn of her lips. She was enjoying this, enjoying watching my world crumble. Relatives shifted uncomfortably, whispering among themselves. Aunt Jane pulled her daughter closer, as if I might try to poison her next. Uncle Bob avoided my gaze entirely. The only person who moved toward me was Grandma Rose. "Now wait just a minute," Grandma's voice rang out, cutting through the chaos. "Everyone needs to calm down and think about this rationally. Did anyone see Samantha put the peanut butter in the cake?" Her words hung in the air like a lifeline, but Dad's grip on the jar tightened. "Everything is already clear," he said firmly. "Go to your room, Samantha. We'll deal with this later," Dad said, his voice cutting through my protests. The next few days were a living nightmare. At home, my parents treated me like I didn't exist. They left the room whenever I entered, locked away all the food, and whispered behind closed doors. At school, rumors spread faster than wildfire. People avoided me in the hallways as if my supposed crime was contagious. By the 3rd day, I couldn't take it anymore. I found Katie alone in her room, scrolling through her phone, as calm and smug as ever. "You need to tell them the truth," I demanded, shutting the door behind me. "This has gone far enough." Katie looked up, her expression cool. Then she smiled, A smile so cold it made my blood run cold. You know what's funny? She said, setting her phone down with deliberate care. I've been planning this for months, waiting for the perfect moment. The birthday party was just ideal. Something snapped inside me. Years of anger, frustration, and hurt exploded in an instant. I lunged at her, grabbing her shoulders. We crashed to the floor, knocking over her bedside lamp. The noise brought our parents running. They found us wrestling on the ground, both of us shouting. She confessed. I yelled as Dad pulled me off Katie. She just told me she planned the whole thing. She planted the peanut butter in my purse. Stop lying. Katie shrieked, tears streaming down her face as she clutched her arm. She's crazy. She attacked me. That's enough, Mom said, her voice ice cold. Pack your things, Samantha. We can't have you in this house anymore. What? No, please. I begged, my voice cracking. You're dangerous, Dad declared, his face stummy. Either your grandmother picks you up by morning, or we're calling social services. I fell to my knees, sobbing, pleading for them to listen, but their faces didn't waver. Katie stood behind them, her crocodile tears drying quickly, replaced by a triumphant smirk. Grandma Rose arrived at dawn, her old station wagon idling in the driveway. As I loaded my hastily packed bags into the car, she turned to my parents one last time. What you're doing is despicable, she said, her voice trembling with anger. You're choosing to believe a lie over your own daughter. Someday you'll realize what you've done, and it'll be too late. They didn't respond. They just stood in the doorway, Katie between them, watching as Grandma drove me away from the only home I'd ever known. Living with Grandma Rose was like finally being able to breathe after years of suffocation. Within a month, she had legally adopted me, handled all the paperwork for my transfer to Riverside High School, and converted her sewing room into my bedroom. At Riverside, I was a blank slate. No one knew about the birthday party or Katie's lies. I was just the new girl with good grades and a quiet smile. Slowly, I began making friends again. Real friends who weren't poisoned by Katie's whispers. Freed from the constant drama and criticism, I flourished. My SAT scores were nearly perfect. I graduated as valedictorian, delivering a speech on resilience and the power of second chances. My parents didn't attend the ceremony. I'd sent them an invitation, more out of formality than hope, but received no response. It hurt, but less than I expected. Grandma Rose's proud tears as I accepted my diploma meant more than their absence ever could. I was accepted into several prestigious dental programs, but the tuition fees were daunting. Before I could even mention student loans, Grandma Rose pulled out a folder. I've been saving for this since you were 12, she said, showing me a college fund she quietly built over the years. I always knew you were meant for great things. Those 4 years of dental school were grueling but rewarding. I lived in a tiny apartment near campus, worked part-time at a cafe, and studied until my eyes burned. Through it all, Grandma Rose was my rock, listening to my excited phone calls about successful procedures and never doubting my chosen path. I had no contact with my parents or Katie during those years. Occasionally, I'd see updates about them on social media. Katie's retail job, Mom's garden club awards, Dad's bowling league victories. I scrolled past quickly, refusing to let their lives intersect with mine. Finally, after years of hard work, I held my dental license in my hands. My first job offer came from Brighton Dental Associates, one of the most respected private practices in the city. I posted a photo of my diploma and license on Facebook, captioned simply, Dr. Samantha Carter, DDS. Dreams do come true. The response was overwhelming. Old school friends, distant relatives, even my third-grade teacher left congratulatory comments. Aunt Jane, who had pulled her daughter away from me at Katie's birthday party, wrote, "We're all so proud of you, Samantha." Uncle Bob commented, "Incredible achievement, kiddo." Looking at those messages, I realized something profound. I'd done more than survive my family's betrayal. I transformed it into fuel for my success. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. The number on the screen was familiar, though I hadn't seen it in years. My heart raced as I debated whether to answer. Finally, I swiped to accept the call. "Hello," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Samantha, sweetie," my mom said, her tone syrupy sweet, the way she used to speak when trying to charm Katie's teachers into giving deadline extensions. "We saw your announcement about becoming a dentist. We're so proud of you." I stayed silent, letting her fill the awkward void. We've been thinking about you, she continued, her voice dripping with false warmth. Your father and I would love to have you over for dinner. Just to catch up as a family. Every instinct screamed at me to say no, but a stubborn part of me, a piece still desperate for their approval, answered for me. What time? The next evening, I parked my new Mercedes in front of my childhood home. The house looked smaller than I remembered, the paint peeling around the windows. I had dressed carefully, a designer blouse, tailored pants, and the pearl earrings Grandma Rose gave me for graduation. It wasn't just clothing, it was armor. Mom opened the door before I could knock. Samantha. She moved as if to hug me, then hesitated, pulling back awkwardly. Come in, come in. You look so professional. Dad stood in the living room, fidgeting. Hey kiddo, he said, his voice uncertain. He looked older than I expected, his hair completely gray now, new lines etched around his eyes. Is Katie joining us? I asked, noting the table was set for 3. Oh no, she's busy tonight, Mom replied quickly. I made pot roast, your favorite. What followed was a strained dinner of forced smiles and shallow questions. They asked about dental school, my practice, and my life now. I answered politely but briefly, giving them no openings for deeper conversation. So, Dad finally said, pushing his potatoes around his plate, dentistry must be lucrative. There it was. I took a sip of water. I do all right. She drives a Mercedes, Mark, Mom said as if I weren't sitting right there. And you mentioned an apartment. Yes, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I bought a place downtown. With a mortgage, of course. They exchanged a glance. Mom set down her fork, her sigh overly rehearsed. Samantha, we've been having some difficulties, she began. Your father, well, the company downsized last month. And my arthritis makes it harder to keep up at the salon. That must be tough, I said, my expression unreadable. We were wondering. Dad cleared his throat awkwardly. Maybe you could help us out. I raised an eyebrow. Have you asked Katie for help? Mom's face fell. Katie's struggling too. Retail doesn't pay much and she's barely getting by as it is. I placed my napkin on the table and stood. I'm sorry to hear about your situation, but I won't be able to help. As I walked to my car, their voices followed me, pleading and angry. I didn't look back. The next day, during my lunch break, I received a text from Mom. Samantha, we need $20,000. Your father and I are about to lose the house. As our daughter, you have an obligation to help us. I stared at my phone, a strange calm settling over me. Finally, an opportunity. I'll give you the money, I typed back, on one condition. Publicly admit on social media that I never put peanuts in Katie's birthday cake. Admit that you threw me out of the house because of her lies. Tell everyone the truth. The typing bubble appeared and disappeared several times before her response came through. We can't do that. It would destroy our family's reputation. People would judge us. Surely you understand. I laughed bitterly. Then you understand why I won't be giving you any money. Surely you understand. Her reply was immediate. After everything we've done for you. I turned off my phone. 2 hours later, Katie called. Something made me hit record before answering. Hello, Katie. You heartless asterisk, she snarled. Mom's crying because of you. They're about to lose everything, and you're playing games. I'm not playing games, I said calmly. I'm asking for the truth. Truth? Ha, she sneered. That's never going to happen, sis. You know why? Because it would hurt me, and they'll never do anything to hurt their precious Katie. Her voice turned mocking, sing-song. They've always loved me more, even after I told them about the peanut butter. My heart stopped. What do you mean? Oh, didn't you know? She said, her tone dripping with glee. A few months after you left, I told them I planted that jar in your purse. They didn't even care. Dad said it was probably for the best you were gone anyway. I gripped the phone tightly. You admitted it to them. Of course. I was so proud of my plan I had to tell someone. And guess what? They didn't care. They'll never admit it publicly because it would make me look bad. So forget about your little confession demand. The line went dead, but the recording was saved. That evening, I posted on Facebook. No dramatics, no accusations, just the truth. Many of you remember the incident at my sister's 15th birthday party, the day my parents kicked me out for allegedly trying to harm her with peanuts. For years, I carried the weight of that false accusation. Today, I'm sharing my story not out of vengeance, but because the truth deserves to be heard. I detailed everything: Katie's escalating lies, my parents' blind devotion to her, their recent demands for money. Finally, I attached the audio recording of Katie's confession. The response was immediate. Apologies poured in from relatives, old friends, and even acquaintances who had distanced themselves. Aunt Jane wrote a heartfelt apology. Uncle Bob called me in tears. As for my parents and Katie, their messages shifted from outrage to threats to silence. I replied to them all with the same message: all communications are being recorded. My lawyer has copies. Any further harassment will be dealt with legally. They must have realized I wasn't the powerless teenage girl they once threw away. The call stopped. That night, Grandma Rose came over with a bottle of champagne. "To the truth," she said, pouring us each a glass. "And to you, my brave girl. I couldn't have done any of this without you," I told her, fighting back tears. "You were the only one who believed in me." She squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with pride. "I never doubted you, not for a second. And look at you now, strong, successful, free." She was right. Some people would rather live with their lies and face the truth, but that was their burden to bear, not mine. These days, I focus on my practice, my friends, and my relationship with Grandma Rose, the only parent I've ever truly had. The past doesn't haunt me anymore. The truth has set me free. Jessica, have you ever wondered if your whole life was built on lies? I never had, not until my grandmother tried to tell me something that would change everything. At 23, I was living with my mom, Lauren, and my dad, Jackson. It was supposed to be temporary, just until I saved enough from my junior architect job at Peterson and Associates to move out. But Mom had other plans. "Jessica, honey, why waste money on rent when you can stay with us? Think about your future." That was her favorite line, always delivered with a sugary sweet smile while she insisted on helping manage my bank accounts. Ethan, my best friend, saw right through her. One afternoon, over coffee at our usual spot, he didn't hold back. "Girl, you make good money. There's no reason your mom should be monitoring your Venmo like you're 16. She's just trying to help me save." "For what? The apocalypse? You're a grown woman with a degree and a career." I knew Ethan was right, but confronting Mom felt like walking into a minefield. She had a way of twisting every argument, making me feel guilty for questioning her decisions. The real drama started when Grandma Scarlett came to visit. To Mom, she was the black sheep of the family, but to me, she was pure love. That day, she seemed anxious, like she was carrying a heavy burden. She kept trying to pull me aside. "Jessica, sweetheart, there's something you need to know about your mom." "Jessica, can you help me with dinner?" Mom interrupted, appearing out of nowhere, as if she had a sixth sense for private conversations. Even Ethan's boyfriend, Chris, noticed it when he joined us for dinner. "Your mom's got ninja-level interruption skills," he whispered as Mom busied herself in the kitchen. But it didn't stop there. At work, I couldn't escape her influence. She'd somehow befriended the office receptionist, fishing for updates about my schedule, my coworkers, even my lunch breaks. Mrs. Anderson called again. My colleague smirked one afternoon. "Wanted to know if you were working late." Despite all of that, it was Grandma Scarlett's face that haunted me, the way she looked at me when Mom wasn't watching, as if she was carrying the weight of the world. I could see she needed to tell me something, even if it would shatter my life. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I went straight to her room, determined to get answers. She opened the door with tears in her eyes. "It's time you knew the truth, sweetheart," she said, her voice trembling. "Jackson isn't your biological father." The world seemed to stop spinning. "What?" "Your real father is Andrew Mitchell, a businessman your mother dated in college. She never told him she was pregnant. When she met Jackson, she made everyone promise to keep quiet." I barely registered the words before Mom stormed into the room, her face contorted with rage. "You miserable old witch," she spat. "After everything I've done to keep this family together." "She deserves to know," Scarlett said, standing her ground. The slap came out of nowhere, the sound echoing through the room. "Get out." Mom screamed at Scarlett. "Get out of my house." "Stop it," I yelled, stepping between them. "Is it true? Is Jackson not my father?" Mom's laugh was cold and hollow. "Oh, now you've done it, Scarlett. Happy? You've ruined everything. Don't blame her, I shouted. Answer me. Fine, Mom snapped. Yes, Andrew is your father, but he didn't want us. Jackson stepped up and gave us a life. Something clicked in my mind. The letters in Mom's desk drawer, the ones written in unfamiliar handwriting. They're from him, aren't they? I asked, my voice shaking. You've been hiding them from me my whole life. Her face paled. You went through my things? That night, I confronted Jackson. He sat in his study, his shoulders slumped, looking utterly defeated. I knew, he admitted softly. I always knew. Why? I asked, my voice cracking. Why did you let this happen? Your mother. She has a way of making things work in her favor, he said, staring at his hands. The money from Scarlett's trust fund, it kept our lifestyle afloat. I couldn't listen to any more. With Ethan's help, I packed my bags, my hands shaking as Mom screamed threats through the bedroom door. You leave and I'll destroy Scarlett, she shrieked. I'll tell everyone she's senile. Have her committed. Is that what you want? As Ethan drove me away, I watched Mom in the rearview mirror, still screaming on the front lawn, her figure shrinking as we sped off into the night. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Jessica, this is Andrew Mitchell. Your grandmother found me. I've been looking for you for 23 years. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. Please, let me explain everything. I stared at the message, tears blurring my vision. Behind us, Mom's voice faded into the distance, but her threats still echoed in my mind. One thing was clear, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. My entire life had been a carefully constructed lie. But now I was going to tear it all down, brick by brick. Living at Ethan's apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd only scratched the surface of Mom's web of lies. Determined to uncover the truth, I hired Jack Morrison, a private investigator Chris recommended. Your mother's been busy, Jack said, spreading a stack of photos across the table. My breath caught as I recognized faces from my past. Remember Michael? Your college boyfriend who suddenly transferred schools. He said he got a better scholarship. Turns out, Lauren threatened to report his family's restaurant for health violations. They're immigrants. They couldn't risk the attention. My hands trembled as I picked up the photo. What about James? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Last year, she fabricated sexual harassment claims to his employer. Kid lost his job. Couldn't prove his innocence. It didn't end there. Grandma Scarlett, now staying with a friend, called me with more revelations. Your cousin Lisa's college fund, she said, her voice heavy with guilt. Lauren convinced your aunt to invest it in a fake business venture. Everything disappeared. Why didn't anyone stop her? I asked, my frustration mounting. Fear, sweetheart. She has dirt on everyone. Scarlett's voice broke. Remember Uncle Pete's sudden move to Colorado? Lauren threatened to expose his gambling debt to his wife. As I pieced together the scope of Mom's manipulation, Andrew Mitchell walked into my life. We met at a quiet cafe, and when our eyes met, I saw 2 decades of loss reflected in his gaze. I wrote to you every birthday, he said, his voice thick with emotion. He handed me a stack of letters, each one yellowed with age. Every one was returned unopened. I sent gifts, photos, child support. Your mother made sure I never reached you. When they returned, I wasted no time. I hired investigators, but with Lauren holding legal custody, she retaliated quickly, threatening restraining orders and wielding her power like a weapon. Then my phone buzzed with another message from an unknown number. Lauren's getting cozy with Daddy Dearest. Shame about Scarlett's nursing home application being rejected. Seems every facility in the state has concerns about her mental stability. Lauren's tactics didn't stop there. Chris, examining my laptop, uncovered the full extent of her intrusion. She's been monitoring your emails, bank accounts, even your location, he said, scrolling through the data. Look at these keylogger records. They go back years. Can you trace it? I asked. Better. I can document it. Every invasion of privacy, every unauthorized access, it's all here. The evidence piled up. Lauren had created fake social media accounts to spy on me, used Scarlett's social security number to open credit cards, and even forged Jackson's signature on loan documents. Your mother's good, Jack, the private investigator said, but she's sloppy. He handed me a file. Found this in the county records, proof she stole from Scarlett's estate, leaving her nearly bankrupt. Andrew, with his expertise in cybersecurity law, connected us with forensic accountants. They uncovered a tangled web of offshore accounts, fake businesses, and financial fraud that spanned decades. As the investigation progressed, my phone buzzed again. This time, Lauren's venomous voice cut through the line. "Back off, Jessica. I've got friends at the nursing board. One call about Scarlett's concerning behavior, and she'll spend her golden years in a padded room." I hit record on my phone, my voice steady. "Keep talking, Lauren. Tell me more about your plans to falsify medical records." There was silence on the other end before she hissed, "You ungrateful little—" "I'm not that scared little girl anymore," I interrupted. "You want a war? Let's go." Thanksgiving dinner became the perfect trap. I invited the entire family, including Lauren's business partners and closest friends. She walked in like she owned the place, Jackson trailing behind her. "What's this? A peace offering?" she sneered. Her smirk vanished when Andrew's lawyer stood and addressed the room. "Lauren Anderson, we have evidence of your interference with legal correspondence spanning 2 decades. He projected emails onto the wall. Proof she intercepted court documents, child support notices, and legal filings. "You can't prove any of this," Lauren snapped. "Actually," Jackson said, his voice cracking, "the company audit found everything. The missing funds, forged signatures, fake contracts, all traced back to your computer." Her realtor partner, Linda, stood abruptly. "What missing funds?" "Oh, Linda," I said with a smile. "You might want to check those investment properties Lauren convinced you to buy. Turns out they don't exist." The room erupted as secrets spilled out like dominoes falling. Uncle Pete revealed how Lauren had blackmailed him over his gambling debts. Aunt Lisa exposed the stolen college fund scheme. "You ungrateful little snakes," Lauren screamed, lunging at me. But security, courtesy of Andrew's firm, blocked her path. That's when an FBI agent stepped forward. "Mrs. Anderson, we need to discuss your real estate transactions across state lines." Jackson stood, his hands trembling. "I want a divorce," he said. "And the DA has questions about the company funds." As Lauren was escorted out in handcuffs, still screaming threats, her carefully constructed empire crumbled around her. Her real estate license was revoked. Jackson's company pressed charges. Former clients filed lawsuits. 1 year later, I stood in my new office, recently promoted to senior architect. On my desk sat a family photo, me, Andrew, Scarlett, Ethan, and Chris at my graduation from my master's program in architecture. Andrew had helped me pursue my dreams, and Scarlett, now living in a cozy guest house we'd renovated for her, was finally at peace. Her financial security had been restored, her reputation untarnished. "Jessica," my assistant popped her head in, "your father's here for lunch." I glanced out at the city skyline, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known before. Lauren had spent her life building an empire of lies, but I was building mine on truth. Andrew walked in, his smile warm. "You okay?" he asked. "Perfect," I said, meaning it for the first time in my life. "Let's go change some lives." "What would you do if you discovered your entire life was built on lies? Would you expose everything at once, like I did, or take a different approach? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Please stop expecting Julian to come back for family events. Today is my younger brother's wedding day, and his fiancée, Vanessa, had just launched herself at me with words that cut through the air, and me, like a sharp knife. Her voice was loud enough for everyone to hear, and her anger left no room for misinterpretation. The very thought of my brother's wedding had filled me with joy, but now I stood here, humiliated in front of our entire family. The pain from her words lodged deep in my chest and spread like wildfire through my body. The warm atmosphere of celebration dimmed instantly, replaced by a cold, heavy silence that blanketed the room. Was I the only one shaken by her words, or were the guests now judging me too? I could feel their eyes, cold, piercing stares, boring into me, as if they silently agreed I didn't belong. "You shouldn't be coming around here," Vanessa hissed, her sharp eyes narrowing. "You don't really belong here, Rebecca." Her gaze made it clear she saw me as nothing more than a burden. "You have no place here," her eyes seemed to say. I opened my mouth to respond, to defend myself, but no words came out. They caught in my throat, tangled in the storm of emotions. Anger, sadness, frustration, that swirled inside me, too overwhelming to untangle. My breaths felt tight, my legs started to tremble, and for a moment I couldn't move. As much as I wanted to deny it, a part of me wondered if she was right. Had I leaned too heavily on Julian? Over the years, had I unknowingly become a burden? It was true, my presence had strained their relationship. Julian and I had always been close, and maybe that closeness had made it hard for Vanessa to feel like she truly belonged. But even if I was the problem, she didn't have to say it like this. Her words weren't meant to solve anything. They were meant to put me in my place. I understand, I said, though the voice didn't feel like my own. It was quiet, raw, and hollow, as if someone else had spoken for me. I stood up, trying to stay calm, though every fiber of my being screamed to run. I wanted to stay, if only to see the ceremony through, but I knew I couldn't. I wouldn't ruin Ken's happy day with my presence. I turned and walked toward the door, feeling like I was slipping out of my own life. Just as I reached for the handle, a loud crash echoed behind me. I turned to see a chair had fallen, the noise breaking the heavy silence that had filled the room. My name is Rebecca. I'm 32 years old, and sometimes I wonder how different life would have been if that accident hadn't happened. Julian and I lost our parents when I was 11 and he was just 8. They were coming back from a weekend trip when the accident occurred. By the time we got to the hospital, they were gone. It felt as though the entire world had gone silent. I couldn't process what had happened. My only clear memory from that day was Julian's small hand trembling in mine. After that, we went to live in a children's home. The staff were kind, and we quickly grew close to the other kids. But no matter how familiar our surroundings became, there was always an ache inside me, a hollow, unfillable void. I wanted to see Julian smile again, so I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't cry in front of him. I believed if I cried, he would feel sad too. From then on, being a big sister became my purpose. It was the only thing that kept me going. When I turned 18, I had to leave the children's home. There were programs that could help us pursue college, but I chose not to use them. If anyone was going to college, it had to be Julian. I started working during the day and took night classes at a vocational school to learn event planning. I had a small dream of starting my own business one day, but that dream always felt distant. My main goal was to support Julian. I even took out loans to ensure he could go to college without worry. Watching him work hard at his studies only strengthened my resolve. I wanted to give him the opportunities I never had. And Julian didn't let me down. He graduated and landed a job at a large company. When he told me the news, I couldn't hold back my tears. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, it had all been worth it to see him succeed. After he started working, Julian began sending me $2,000 every month. I told him he didn't have to, that he should save it for himself. But his response left me speechless. "Sis, you did everything for me. Not giving something back would feel wrong. Please accept this." I cried again when I read his message. His words filled me with gratitude, but they also reminded me that I needed to stand on my own 2 feet. Quietly, I started saving the money he sent. I didn't spend a dime of it, hoping to one day return it if he ever needed help. Meanwhile, I used the skills I'd learned in school to start a small event planning business. In the beginning, it was just me working alone. But as time went on, the business grew and I became busier. Julian even started helping me on the weekends despite his demanding job. Then one day, Julian told me he had started dating someone, Vanessa. She worked at a partner company, and from the way he spoke about her, it was clear how happy she made him. Seeing that joy on his face made me genuinely happy too. A year later, during one of our walks home after dinner, Julian shared that he was planning to marry her. As the words left his mouth, a strange weight settled inside me. I smiled and congratulated him. But deep down, I felt an odd pang. Was it loneliness? Or the fear of losing him? Vanessa seemed like a good person. She made Julian happy, and when we first met, she was polite and kind. Still, there was something in her smile that felt distant, almost measured. At first, I thought it was my own insecurities clouding my judgment, but that feeling became harder to ignore after I met her family. We gathered for a pre-wedding dinner at a nice Japanese restaurant. Vanessa's parents were elegant and sophisticated, the kind of people who exuded effortless charm. Yet, beneath their polite demeanor, there was an air of subtle condescension. "You've come so far, growing up in a children's home. I mean, how admirable," Vanessa's mother said, her tone friendly but her gaze laced with judgment. Her words were carefully neutral, but they stung. Julian, ever composed, answered politely, I wouldn't have come this far without my sister. His voice was steady, but I caught the tension beneath it. Julian had always spoken proudly of our past, but here, he seemed to be holding back. I wanted to defend him, to remind him how hard we had worked to build a life for ourselves, but I couldn't. I wouldn't risk saying something that might dampen Julian's happiness. After dinner, he told me not to worry, but his reassurances only deepened the ache in my chest. I could see he was hurt too. Despite the uneasiness, I wanted to make things work. Above all, I wanted Julian to be happy. I made an effort to connect with Vanessa as the wedding plans moved forward. We spent time together reviewing guest lists and picking out dresses. She was polite, cooperative even, but I couldn't shake the feeling that her warmth was superficial. Then, one day, her words cut through the polite pretense. Is Julian still sending you money? She asked, her tone casual but her gaze sharp. Her next words hit me like a stone. Honestly, I think it's a bit much. Now that we're getting married, our finances should come first. I froze, caught between defensiveness and guilt. Vanessa wasn't entirely wrong. It was time for Julian to focus on his new family, but she didn't understand what that money meant. It wasn't just repayment, it was a testament to everything we had built together, the sacrifices we had made for each other. That night, I knew I had to bring it up with Julian. Vanessa doesn't seem happy about the money, does she? I said carefully, trying to gauge his reaction. I figured she'd bring it up, Julian replied with a sigh. He looked resigned, but there was also a quiet determination in his eyes. Maybe it's time to stop, I said, the words heavy on my tongue. You have a family to focus on now. The ache in my heart grew as I spoke, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I'm not stopping, Julian said firmly. Rebecca, you've done so much for me. I can't just quit now. His words brought tears to my eyes, but I blinked them away before he could see. All right, Julian, I understand. I didn't want to push him. I knew that forcing him to stop would only make him more determined. For now, I would let him make his choice. Here's a rewritten version of your segment for better flow, emotional depth, and clarity. The wedding day finally arrived. I had done everything I could to support their happiness. Julian's happiness was all I had ever wanted. But deep down, a lingering unease settled in my heart. Would Vanessa truly be the one to support him the way he deserved? The ceremony went smoothly, and for a brief moment I felt at peace. Watching Julian's radiant smile made all the years of sacrifice seem worth it. But that peace didn't last. During the reception, it happened. Please stop coming to visit Julian. Vanessa's words rang out like a dagger, sharp and deliberate, cutting through the hum of conversation. The room went silent, every gaze turning toward me. I stood frozen, the air knocked out of me. My face flushed, then went pale as the humiliation sank in. Vanessa's piercing gaze seemed to scream that I didn't belong here, that I was an outsider intruding on her life. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. My throat tightened with a tangled mess of anger, sadness, and humiliation. All I managed was a single word, my voice distant and unfamiliar. Understood. I turned toward the door, willing myself to leave without breaking down, determined not to cause a scene. But just as my hand reached for the door, I heard a loud crash behind me. I spun around to see Julian standing, his chair knocked over in a commotion. His face was filled with uncharacteristic fury. Vanessa, do you even know what you just said? His voice was low, but the anger in it was unmistakable. Vanessa looked startled, her confident composure faltering. Julian, I didn't mean. Enough. Julian cut her off, his tone razor sharp. You don't know anything about what she's done for me. The room was silent, the weight of his words echoing through the stunned crowd. Without my sister, I wouldn't even be here today. Julian continued, his voice shaking with emotion. She sacrificed everything, her time, her dreams, her future, so I could have mine. I send her money every month because it's not charity. It's respect and gratitude. She gave me everything, and this is the least I can do in return. Vanessa's face went pale as Julian's words pierced through the room. The tension was palpable. Then, one by one, voices began to rise in support of me. She's always been there for Julian, an aunt said, stepping forward. We all know how much Rebecca has done for this family. She helped him through so much, added another relative. She's always put others before herself. Even Julian's colleagues began to speak up. Honestly, Vanessa can be difficult, one admitted reluctantly. At work, she's known for her sharp tongue and pushing others down. It's true, another chimed in. She can be overly harsh, always looking out for herself. With every word, Vanessa's confidence crumbled. Her face turned ghostly white as the respect she thought she commanded slipped away. Then, just as the murmurs reached their peak, the doors to the hall swung open. A man entered, impeccably dressed, his presence commanding attention. "My apologies for being late," he said, his voice steady. "Mr. Jameson, welcome," someone greeted him, their tone respectful. Mr. Jameson was a prominent figure, a senior manager from a company that worked closely with Vanessa's family business. He scanned the room, his sharp gaze taking in the tension. "Is something the matter here?" he asked. "Oh no, Mr. Jameson, just a family misunderstanding," Vanessa's father said quickly, attempting to downplay the situation. Mr. Jameson's eyes settled on me. "You must be Rebecca. I've heard impressive things about your event planning company." I blinked, caught off guard. "Thank you, Mr. Jameson," I said, my voice hesitant. He nodded. "Rebecca is a foster home graduate, correct?" "I grew up in foster care myself." The room fell silent, the weight of his revelation settling over everyone. "I've always respected those who overcome adversity," Mr. Jameson continued, his tone firm. "Rebecca's work reflects that spirit. At our company, we choose partners based on merit, not background. Excluding someone because of their past is not only unfair but goes against our values." Vanessa's father looked visibly uncomfortable, his face paling as Mr. Jameson's words landed. Another voice broke the silence. "Julian's. I can't marry someone who doesn't respect my family," he said, his tone final. Vanessa's face twisted in disbelief, but she couldn't form a response. Julian crossed the room and hugged me tightly, his voice breaking as he spoke. "Thank you, Rebecca, for everything, for always being there for me." Tears welled in my eyes as I hugged him back. "Thank you, Julian. I'll always be here for you." That moment marked the beginning of a new chapter. In the months that followed, my event planning business grew, thanks in part to Mr. Jameson's support. Julian became my business partner, using his skills to help us expand and take on new challenges. Together, we created something incredible, building a future rooted in the strength of our bond. "We've come so far," Julian said one day as we reflected on our journey. "We have," I agreed, a smile on my face. "And I'm grateful for every step." Together, we moved forward, side by side, creating a life full of opportunity, respect, and love.